The alien commander expected screams when his fleet cut off the lone Terran vessel. He expected panic, frantic calls for aid, maybe even silence born from despair. What he did not expect was laughter. Clear, ridiculous, unshaken laughter, carried over the comms as if the humans were sitting in a tavern rather than staring down 40 warships built for planetary purges. Lieutenant Commander Kara Vance nearly choked on her coffee when the first Zareth cruiser decloaked ahead of them. It wasn't because she was scared, not yet, anyway, but because the timing was so absurd that it felt like the galaxy itself was mocking her. She coughed, wiped her chin, and set the cracked mug back in its holder. "Dominguez," she said, squinting through the viewport at the wall of alien hulls forming around them. "Tell me that's a hologram. Or a bad dream. Or literally anything other than what it looks like." Chief Engineer Miguel Dominguez pushed himself up from under a console, grease smeared on his cheek and sarcasm already loaded. "If it's a dream, ma'am, I'd like a refund. My dreams usually come with beach resorts and cocktails, not genocidal bug fleets." The bridge crew chuckled nervously, but the sound didn't last. Out there in the void, jagged insectal silhouettes blocked the starlight, their hulls glowing with pulsing veins of plasma. 30 cruisers, 10 skirmishers, and at least 1 dreadnought, an armada designed to erase civilizations. And here they were, the Dauntless, a frigate so patched together that its jump drive had been officially listed as theoretical. Tactical Officer Yana Brigg, tall and pale with a habit of expecting the worst, leaned over her console. "This doesn't make sense. Why would the collective waste ships like this on one system? There's nothing here worth taking." "Except us," Kara muttered. She leaned back in her worn pilot's chair, letting her boots rest on the dash like a defiant barfly in a saloon. The cracked leather squeaked under her weight. "Guess we're the entertainment." "Entertainment?" Brigg's eyebrows shot up. "We're a snack, not a show. That many guns pointed at us." "Relax," Dominguez cut in, waving a rag. "They don't know the Dauntless. If they did, they'd realize we're more dangerous to ourselves than to them." Kara smirked. He wasn't wrong. Their frigate was a disaster. One rail gun had been welded shut. Their missile tubes misfired half the time. The coffee machine had finally died the week before, which in human terms was practically an act of war. And the crew? They weren't hardened Marines. They were a patchwork of misfits shuffled here because someone in command had misplaced their paperwork. Yet somehow, staring at the oncoming storm, Kara felt no fear. Only the ridiculous weight of irony pressing on her ribs. The comm unit crackled, then hissed to life with the guttural rasp of Zareth's speech, auto-translators spitting out a monotone message. "Terran vessel. You are surrounded. Surrender. You will be assimilated swiftly. Resist, and your atoms will be scattered." Dominguez rolled his eyes. "Friendly bunch, aren't they?" Kara gestured for the comm. "Put me through." When the channel opened, she leaned forward, voice dripping with mock courtesy. "This is Lieutenant Commander Kara Vance of the Terran Navy frigate Dauntless. Assimilation sounds boring. I'll pass." For a moment, silence. Then, over the comms, came the clicking sound the Zareth used for laughter, low, grating, like claws on metal. "Defiant. Futile. Your weapons cannot harm us. Your will cannot resist us. You are alone." Kara smirked. "Funny thing about being alone. Makes us hard to predict." She cut the line before they could reply. Brigg gave her a look that could have melted steel. "Do you even believe half the things that come out of your mouth?" "Not even a little," Kara admitted cheerfully. "But it's not about me believing it. It's about them wondering if maybe I do." On cue, the alien ships shifted formation, tightening the crescent around them. Weapons systems flared to life, casting the void in sickly green and violet light. Kara tapped the armrest of her chair thoughtfully. Running was suicide, their jump drive was fried. Fighting was insanity, they'd be vapor in under a minute. Which left? "Dominguez," she said. "What's the state of our decoys? Functional? 2, maybe 3. Depends on how generous the universe feels today. And the mines?" He grimaced. Half are duds. The other half I can rewire for remote detonation, but you're not gonna like the odds. Kara's grin sharpened. Perfect. Let's bluff. The bridge crew blinked. Bluff? Brigg repeated, incredulous. You want to bluff 40 warships with a handful of broken toys? Exactly, Kara said. If we can convince them we've got teeth, maybe they hesitate. And if they hesitate, maybe we get an opening. The crew exchanged uncertain looks. Humans weren't the strongest, the fastest, or the most advanced in the galaxy. But if the other species had learned anything about them, it was this: never underestimate a desperate human with too much imagination. Kara stood, clapped her hands, and barked orders with the energy of someone who decided fear was a waste of time. Decoys live in 30. Mines rigged for signal detonation. Gun crews stagger your bursts, make us sound bigger than we are. And for the love of Earth, someone find a way to make our sensor echoes look like reinforcements. The bridge came alive, boots pounding, fingers flying across keys, voices overlapping. Improvisation wasn't just a survival tactic for humans, it was their favorite game. As they scrambled, Kara sank back into her chair. Brigg leaned close, whispering, You know this is lunacy. They'll see through it. Kara's eyes stayed locked on the viewport, on the wall of death advancing. Maybe. But you know what scares an enemy more than weapons? Brigg didn't answer. People who refuse to quit, Kara said softly. The first decoys launched, tiny drones, each broadcasting the signature of a Terran destroyer. On screens, the void suddenly seemed more crowded, the lonely frigate backed by shadows of bigger siblings. A heartbeat later, mines flickered online, pretending to be cutting-edge plasma charges. Railguns barked, staggered and loud, so their fire pattern mimicked a battleship's rhythm. And then the laughter. It started with Kara, sharp and fearless. Then Dominguez joined, chuckling like a man at a bar fight he hadn't bet on. Soon the whole bridge was laughing, some nervously, some with genuine mirth. The sound spilled into the comms, carried across the void. To the Zareth, it must have sounded insane. Humans outnumbered and outgunned, not pleading or bargaining, but laughing. The alien dreadnought hesitated. Just for a moment, but Kara saw it, the tiny flicker of doubt. And in that instant, the balance shifted. The Zareth had feared human weapons before. But what they were beginning to fear now was something far stranger: the human will. The alien fleet didn't fire. Not yet. Their ships tightened formation, their weapon systems hummed hotter, their shields shimmered like molten glass, but they didn't commit. They hesitated, and in hesitation lay the seed of doubt. Lieutenant Commander Kara Vance leaned forward in her chair, eyes locked on the tactical display. The Dauntless sat at the center, a fragile speck surrounded by glowing arcs of enemy signatures. Around her, the bridge hummed with tense energy, each crew member half expecting death to crash down on them at any second. Report, Kara said, voice steady. Decoys holding, Dominguez answered, hands smeared with grease as he hammered at the engineering console. 2 are projecting destroyer-class signatures, the third's wobbling like a drunk uncle, but hey, still scarier than us. Minefield? Armed and broadcasting. If they so much as sneeze at them, it'll look like a fireworks finale. Brigg frowned at her console. The problem is, Commander, we can't bluff forever. If they launch a probe or test our lines, they'll see through it, Kara finished. I know. That was the heart of it. Their tricks weren't meant to last. They were meant to buy time. Time for what, though? There was no backup fleet coming. No miracle cavalry charging in from hyperspace. Unless... Kara's gaze drifted to the gas giant looming in the viewport. A storm-racked monster of blue and green swirls, its gravitational pull bending light. She tapped her fingers on the armrest, mind racing. Brigg, she said slowly. What's the status on their sensor arrays? The officer blinked. Standard collective array spread. Why? Because I'm wondering how good their readings are with all that interference from the giant's magnetosphere. If we hug the storm belt, their sensors might see ghosts. Dominguez whistled. Ghosts? Or debris. Or us breaking apart under the pressure. That gravity will chew us like gum. Can we reinforce the hull plating? Sure, he said dryly. Just give me a couple weeks, a full shipyard, and 3 miracles. Kara ignored him, a smile tugging at her lips. What if we don't need to survive long? What if we make it look like a whole squadron's hiding in the storm? The bridge went quiet. The idea was insane, reckless, borderline suicidal. Which made it, of course, very human. Brig pinched the bridge of her nose. You want to take our limping frigate into a gravity well, rig the echoes to multiply, and convince 40 warships there's a Terran fleet waiting in the clouds? Exactly. Commander, that's not a plan. I don't even know what that is. Kara grinned. It's improvisation. The alien dreadnought hailed again, its voice filling the bridge. Terran vessel. You insult us with illusions. Your tricks will not save you. Surrender or be reduced to ash. Kara cut the channel without answering. Plot us a course into the storm, she said. Brig stared. You're insane. Probably, Kara agreed. But better insane than dead. The Dauntless turned, thrusters flaring as it angled toward the gas giant's swirling mass. At once, the alien fleet surged forward, wings tightening, ready to crush them before they could escape. Here they come, Dominguez muttered. Good, Kara said. Let them chase. The frigate plunged into the storm belt, the viewport filling with violent hues of turquoise lightning and jade whirlwinds. The ship shuddered, metal groaning as the atmosphere tugged and twisted. Lights flickered, sparks spat from consoles, and the hull creaked like an old ship at sea. Structural integrity at 60%. Briggs shouted over the alarms. Keep her steady, Kara said calmly, as though they weren't about to be turned into human pancakes. Dominguez was working furiously at his console, sweat dripping down his temple. Rerouting power to projection nodes. If this doesn't fry our grid, I'll eat my boots. On the tactical display, echoes began to multiply. 1 frigate became 3, then 5, then 8. The storm's magnetic chaos twisted their sensor profile into a blur of signatures. To any external scan, it looked like a fleet was dancing within the storm. The alien formation slowed. Kara grinned. They're buying it. Or, Briggs said tightly, they're lining up for a mass barrage. The bridge dimmed as lightning crackled across the viewport, illuminating the fear in some eyes, the determination in others. Kara leaned back, heartbeat steady. They weren't safe, not even close, but they'd stolen time again. And time was life. Dominguez, she said, what's the status of our mines? All live, all linked. Good. Detonate 1. He blinked. Just 1? Just 1. He pressed the command. Out in the storm, a brilliant flash erupted, a mine blowing apart in a cascade of plasma. To Zara's sensors, it must have looked like a Terran heavy warhead going off. The alien fleet shifted uneasily. They didn't retreat, not yet, but their lines wavered. Brig exhaled, half in awe. They think we've got bigger toys than we do. That's the idea, Kara said. But even as hope flickered, reality crept in. Their bluff couldn't last. The Zereth weren't fools. They'd probe deeper, test harder, and eventually call their bluff. And when that happened... Commander, Briggs said, voice low. What happens when they figure it out? Kara didn't answer right away. Her eyes stayed fixed on the viewport, on the storm swirling endlessly, on the alien fleet hovering just beyond. Finally, she said, then we show them what will looks like. The words hung heavy, more frightening than any weapon. As if summoned, the aliens fired a warning barrage, dozens of plasma lances streaking into the storm. 1 decoy drone vaporized instantly. Another went silent. The third flickered, its false signature collapsing. The bridge crew stiffened. They're testing us, Briggs said. Then make the test hurt, Kara snapped. Dominguez triggered 2 mines at once. Explosions rippled through the storm, bright enough to scorch sensor arrays. For a heartbeat, it looked like the Dauntless had answered with overwhelming firepower. The aliens paused again. They don't get it, Kara murmured, almost to herself. They think weapons win wars. They've never fought people like us. Her crew looked at her, and in that moment something shifted, not fear, not desperation, but a spark of belief. If Kara Vance believed they could defy 40 ships with nothing but will and wit, maybe they could. But outside, the dreadnought moved. Massive, deliberate, unstoppable. Its silhouette cut through the storm clouds like a leviathan, immune to their tricks. The alien voice filled the bridge once more. Your ghosts will not save you, human. We will tear the storm apart. We will find you. Kara leaned forward, eyes burning. Then come find us. The crew braced as the dreadnought fired, its plasma barrage tearing through the storm like claws. Lightning danced in its wake, the storm itself ripped open. The Dauntless rocked violently, alarms screaming, consoles sparking. Dominguez shouted, Shields failing! Hull at 40%! Briggs' voice cracked. Commander, we can't take another hit like that. Then we don't let them land it, Kara said. Her mind was racing, calculating. Improvisation had bought them minutes. Now they needed something more. Something bolder. She thought of history, of old Earth wars where humans fought against overwhelming odds. Battles where the enemy had more guns, more ships, more numbers. Battles won not by weapons, but by grit, deception, and sheer refusal to fall. Her lips curved into a fierce smile. If they want ghosts, she whispered, we'll give them ghosts they'll never forget. The crew looked at her, wide-eyed. Commander, Dominguez said carefully, what exactly are you planning? Kara's grin widened. Something insane. The storm raged around them, the alien fleet closed in, and the Dauntless prepared to make the galaxy remember why humanity had always been feared, not for its weapons, but for its will. The dreadnought advanced through the storm like a titan, its jagged hull glowing with the energy of weapons systems primed to annihilate. Around it, the smaller Zareth cruisers tightened formation, their predators' patience spent. The Dauntless was no longer an amusement, it was prey to be crushed. Lieutenant Commander Caravan stood in the middle of the bridge, feet planted as if she could hold the ship together by sheer defiance. Lightning flared across the viewport, painting her face in stark flashes. Status? She barked. Briggs' voice cracked with the tension of her console's alarms. Shields at 30%. Hull integrity dropping. One more direct hit and we're scrap. Engines? Dominguez swore, slamming a wrench against the console for emphasis. Running on duct tape and prayers. I told you the jump drive was a glorified paperweight. Kara smirked despite the chaos. Guess we'll just have to turn prayers into weapons. The alien voice rasped over comms, full of venomous certainty. You cannot hide. You cannot win. Humanity's will is meaningless before the collective. Kara cut the transmission with a jab of her finger. Funny. They keep telling us our will doesn't matter, which makes me think it's the only thing they're worried about. Briggs turned wide-eyed. Commander, we're out of mines. The decoys are gone. We've got nothing left to bluff with. Then we don't bluff, Kara said sharply. We bite. The crew exchanged glances, a ripple of fear and thrill mingling. Humanity's history was full of moments where biting when cornered had changed the course of wars. They all knew it. Now they were about to live it, or die trying. Kara snapped out orders. Dominguez, rig the reactor to overload, but keep it under manual control. Brig, prep targeting for the dreadnought's sensor arrays. We blind them, even for seconds, and we've got an opening. You want to suicide bomb the ship? Dominguez shouted. Not if I can help it, Kara shot back. But I'll make them think we will. Let's show them what it means when humans say over our dead bodies. The ship shuddered as the dreadnought fired again, plasma lances ripping through the storm. One beam grazed their hull, melting a scar across the Dauntless' side. Metal screamed. Fire suppression systems hissed desperately. Sparks rained down. Crews shouted. Yet through it all, Kara's voice cut steady, unwavering. Target locked, Brig announced. But Commander, We've only got 3 working railguns. At this range. 3's enough, Kara said. Fire! The Dauntless answered with thunder. 3 streaks of hyperaccelerated slugs tore through the storm, ripping into the dreadnought's forward sensor cluster. The alien ship flinched, shield flares sputtered, and part of its array went dark. The Zereth roared in outrage over the comms, their voice distorted with static. You dare wound us? We will unmake you! Kara grinned fiercely. That's the idea. For a moment, just a moment, the tide shifted. The dreadnought reeled, cruisers scattering to cover its flank. The Dauntless darted deeper into the storm, hiding in the chaos. Reactors primed, Dominguez said grimly. 1 more push and she's cooking. If we trigger it, we'll light up half the system. Good, Kara said. Let them see it. She opened the comm channel again, her voice ringing through space like a dare. Zereth Fleet, this is Lieutenant Commander Vance. You wanted to assimilate us? Here's the deal, we've tied our reactor to manual override. You destroy us, we blow. You capture us, we blow. Either way, you go down with us. How's that for meaningless wool? The channel cut. Silence stretched across the bridge, taut as a drawn bow. Brig whispered, Commander, if they call our bluff. Kara's smile was sharp as a blade. It's not a bluff. The crew froze, realization dawning. Kara wasn't pretending. She was ready to take the Dauntless down with the fleet if that's what it took. And somehow, that certainty made them stand straighter, their fear transmuted into a grim pride. The Zereth dreadnought loomed closer, undeterred. Plasma lances charged again. They're not backing down, Briggs said, voice tight. Then we push harder, Kara said. Dominguez hesitated only a second, then his hands flew across the console, diverting power from life support to weapons. The lights dimmed, air circulation slowed, but the railguns glowed hot, ready to punch again. Guns ready, Briggs said. Hit them, Kara ordered. The Dauntless fired, rail slugs screaming through the storm, smashing into another cluster of the dreadnought's arrays. This time, sparks exploded across the alien hull, scattering debris into the void. The dreadnought answered with fury. Plasma fire raked across the storm, searing through the Dauntless. 1 beam slammed into their side, rocking the ship violently. Crew were thrown to the deck. Consoles exploded. Hull breach on deck 6! Someone shouted. Seal it off! Kara yelled back. Brig coughed through smoke. Commander, we can't take another barrage! Kara looked at her crew, sweat-streaked, bloodied, exhausted, and felt the spark of something unyielding ignite in her chest. Then we don't let them, she said. Her mind raced, sifting through insanity like cards in a gambler's hand. Then it clicked. Dominguez, she barked, can we channel the reactor overload into the railguns? 1 shot, everything we've got. He stared at her like she'd gone mad. That'll melt the barrels, rupture the conduits, maybe take us out before we fire. Maybe, Kara said. But if it hits... Dominguez swore, but there was no hesitation in his eyes now. Give me 5 minutes. You've got 2, Kara snapped. The bridge became a storm within a storm, Dominguez shouting codes, Brig recalibrating targeting, ensigns relaying frantic data. The ship groaned as systems rerouted, lights flickered, alarms screamed. Outside, the dreadnought closed in, its massive hull blotting out the stars, weapons blazing with the light of imminent death. Commander, Briggs said softly, if this fails... Kara cut her off. Then we make sure they remember us. The final sequence locked. The reactor howled in protest, energy coursing through the Dauntless like fire through veins. The rail guns glowed white-hot, trembling under the strain. Target locked, Briggs said. Fire, Kara whispered. The shot tore free with the roar of a dying star. A single slug, burning with the fury of their overloaded reactor, streaked through the storm and slammed into the dreadnought's hull. For a moment, silence. Then eruption. The slug tore through shields, ripped into the dreadnought's side, and detonated half its reactor array in a blinding explosion. The shockwave hurled the Dauntless like a toy, spinning them through the storm. Alarms blared. Consoles fried. Hull integrity plummeted. But when the chaos cleared, the dreadnought was burning. Its forward section was torn open, flames and debris spewing into space. The bridge erupted in stunned gasps. We hit them," Brigg whispered. Kara's grin was savage. "Damn right we did." But celebration was cut short. The dreadnought still lived, its weapons sputtering but functional. Cruisers surged forward to shield it, plasma cannons igniting. "They're angry now," Dominguez muttered. "Good," Kara said. She wiped blood from her lip, eyes blazing. "Let them come. They've seen our weapons. Now they'll see our will." The storm outside raged. The enemy bore down. And the Dauntless, battered and bleeding, braced for the final stand. The fleet hung silent in the void. Alien wreckage drifted past Earth's orbital defense grid, torn, burning, and lifeless. What had begun as a campaign of intimidation by the Xyrix Dominion had become something far stranger, far more terrifying, for them. Because for the first time in galactic memory, a species had stood unarmed against the greatest arsenal the stars had ever known, and won. Captain Elena Serrano stood on the bridge of the Resolute, her uniform scorched, her eyes dark-ringed from days without rest. Around her, the crew waited, not with fear, but with that taut, brittle energy that meant they were too tired to celebrate, too shocked to grieve. Even now, even after everything, they half expected another Xyrix wave to warp in. "Status report," Elena said, her voice hoarse but steady. "Enemy fleet has retreated, Captain," Lieutenant Ramon replied, fingers trembling as he skimmed the holographic readouts. "They're pulling back beyond lunar orbit. No signs of regrouping. Honestly." He stopped, blinked in disbelief, then whispered, "They're fleeing." The word carried through the bridge like a pulse of thunder. Fleeing. The Xyrix. The Dominion that had enslaved entire worlds, who had silenced whole species for less than a whisper of defiance, running from humans who had fought them with bare fists, improvised weapons, and a will that refused to crack. Elena lowered herself into her chair, exhausted beyond measure. She wanted to believe it was over. But deep inside, she knew the Xyrix were not done. Empires like theirs didn't vanish after one defeat. No, this was only the beginning. The Galactic Council convened 3 days later, summoning Earth's envoys to a chamber that had never before witnessed humans standing with their heads unbowed. Hundreds of species filled the amphitheater, their eyes fixed on the humans who walked in with no escorts, no ceremonial displays of weaponry, no fleets parked in orbit to prove their legitimacy. Just Elena Serrano, Dr. Marcus Hale, and 2 soldiers still wearing battered armor streaked with ash and blood. The council's speaker, a towering crystalline being from the Thero homeworld, opened the session. Its voice resonated like wind through glass towers. "Humanity of soul," it intoned. "You have resisted the Xyrix Dominion with a savagery beyond precedent. Our records do not understand this. You had no fleet to rival theirs. Your weaponry was crude by galactic standards. Yet you stand and they retreat. Explain this paradox, lest the galaxy misunderstand your place in it." Marcus stepped forward. His hair was wild, his eyes fever-bright from too many sleepless nights spent recording every detail of Earth's defense. He held no datapads, no evidence, only his own voice. "There is no paradox," he said simply. "The Xyrix feared our weapons because that's all they understood. They measured worth in firepower, in numbers, in technology. But when they came for Earth, they found something else. They found people who would fight with rocks when their rifles failed. They found engineers who turned comm towers into rail guns overnight. They found doctors who carried rifles, and soldiers who carried stretchers. They found will." A murmur rippled across the chamber. Some alien delegates shifted uncomfortably, others leaned forward as if drawn by a force they couldn't explain. Marcus continued, his voice sharpening. "The Xyrix fight for conquest. We fight for each other. That is the difference. That is why they lost." The speaker's crystalline form pulsed with color, curiosity mixed with unease. And if the Dominion returns? Elena stepped forward then. Her voice carried no anger, only the cold edge of conviction. Then they'll learn what we've always known. You can strip us of weapons, fleets, even cities. But you can't strip us of our will. And that will is a weapon no empire has yet defeated. Back on Earth, the scars of battle were everywhere. Cities bore the blackened outlines of orbital strikes, oceans boiled in places where Zyric's weapons had pierced too deep, and skies still glowed faintly with the trails of fallen ships. Yet humanity moved forward, not limping, but striding. Reconstruction efforts spread like wildfire. Where the Zyrics had destroyed, humans rebuilt. Where fear had taken root, defiance bloomed. On the coast of Lisbon, a memorial rose. Not a statue of generals or admirals, but a massive wall carved with the names of every civilian who had picked up a weapon, every child who had carried water to the front lines, every teacher who had stood in defense of their neighborhood. The inscription read, "They brought war. We answered with will." Elena stood before it one evening, the sun setting behind her, casting long shadows across the stone. She traced her fingers across the names, whispering the ones she recognized, remembering their faces. Rahman approached quietly, carrying 2 cups of coffee. He handed her one, his hand still bearing faint scars. "You think they'll come back?" he asked after a long silence. "They always come back," Elena said, sipping the coffee. "Empires don't forgive defiance. But when they do, we'll be ready." Rahman gave a tired smile. "Ready with what? More sticks and stones?" Elena looked at the wall, then out at the horizon where the sea met the sky. "No," she said softly. "With something they'll never understand. With us." The Zyrics' dominion did not vanish. Across the galaxy, their fleets regrouped, their rulers raged, their scientists dissected the battle for explanations that refused to come. How had a primitive species shattered their pride? How had will alone beaten war? But whispers spread faster than any fleet. From one star system to another, from oppressed colonies to worlds long silenced, the story of humanity traveled. They spoke of men and women who fought with nothing but their hands. They spoke of soldiers who laughed in the face of death, of doctors who healed between firefights, of a people who should have surrendered, but didn't. In the darkest corners of the galaxy, slaves began to hope. Soldiers in other empires began to wonder. And the Zyrics began to fear. Not humanity's weapons, but their will. Months later, Elena received a message marked with the highest council encryption. She opened it in her quarters aboard the Resolute. The words burned into her retinas as she read. To humanity of soul. The council acknowledges what has become undeniable. You are no longer a primitive world. You are no longer to be ignored. You are recognized as a power, not for your fleets, but for your will. May the stars beware what you choose to do with it. Elena let the message fade from her screen. She leaned back in her chair, weary, but smiling faintly. Outside her window, Earth turned slowly in the dark, blue and fragile, scarred but unbroken. A planet that had faced the might of an empire and had not shattered. She whispered to herself, words meant for no one else, words that carried the truth of everything they had endured. They feared our weapons. But in the end, it was never our weapons they should have feared. In the Zyrics' capital, the High Overlord stared into a hologram of Earth. His advisors shouted of strategies, fleets, punishments. He raised one hand and silenced them. They are dangerous, he said. His voice was low, reverent, almost afraid. Not because of their fire, but because they'd burn without it. And across the galaxy, the stars seemed to shift, just slightly, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. Because a new power had risen. Not an empire. Not a conqueror. But a people with nothing left to lose, and everything left to fight for. And no weapon could ever match that. End of story. Subscribe, call to action. And so, humanity proved once again that our greatest weapon has never been steel or fire, but our will, the unbreakable spark that refuses to die. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the Void Narratives for more journeys into the dark, the defiant, and the human.